happening. We're going to get to it right now. Yep, Shams is busy. That's what we're waiting on every single day. Jaren Jackson Jr., Jock Landale, John Conchar, Vince Williams Jr. Welcome to the Jazz. The Grizzlies get Walter Clayton Jr., Kyle Anderson, Georgie Yang, Taylor Hendricks, and 3 future first-round picks. Georgie Yang he must just keep his stuff in a bag. Lou, let me ask you this. Your initial reactions when you saw this?
That's really good for Utah.
Okay.
Really good for Utah. You got to think, this season we've been having so many different conversations about Lauri Markkanen being in trade talks and him being moved. Instead, they brought in pieces to fit around him, and that makes Utah Jazz look good for the future. You know, I would love to see this new lineup that they have with George, with the young fella Bailey. Also with Lauri, you putting Lauri at the 3, that's a huge lineup, and now you're adding Jaren Jackson, also with Kessler. It just gives them a lot of size, gives them depth now, and it gives them youth. I think that's a lot of positives for the Utah Jazz, and so I was excited to see that they were able to put these pieces together for the near future.
I agree. Really excited with what the Jazz did with this move. Like you said, they put a group of young talent together that I think makes a lot of noise in the West next season. They're versatile, they're tall, they have length. They have an up-and-coming superstar in Keontae George, who's the head of the Snake. So I like the moves that were done with the Utah Jazz. As far as Memphis, they did get a pretty decent return back with, 3 first-round picks, some young talent in Walter Clayton.
Yep.
So, it's a pretty even trade for both sides. I think, both sides left happy. But I'm really excited to see what happens with this Jazz group.
I feel like the shock of it, too, is that we're waiting on John Morant, and then it was Jaren Jackson Jr.'s name that popped up on our phones.
Well, we got time.
Yeah, we do. 30-ish hours?
Got time.
Here's what's crazy, and this will be like a future trivia question at some point, but Jaren Jackson Jr. and Desmond Bane, 7 first-round picks is what they got back for those 2 guys. Luka and Trae Young got back a combined total of 1 first-round pick. Now, I get it. Buyers, they can do whatever you want. The value is what they've decided, but that's crazy to say out loud, Boogie.
It's very crazy. And, you think about the Bane deal and how many picks were involved. You think about Jaren Jackson, how many, the 3 picks involved in his deal. And you can't help to think about a guy like Giannis, whose name is, the headline of this deadline. But, if Jaren Jackson is demanding 3, what's a package for Giannis gonna demand? You know what I mean?
I think we got to throw conventional thinking out of the window at this point.
I guess we do, because it doesn't make sense.
It's so up and down. Like
it's
hard to determine value at this point.
But Beadle makes a great point. It's up to the buyer. Whatever you feel is valuable to you and how much you're willing to pay for it. Some people will pay $1 for the same thing another person will pay $100 for, and that's been the situation. So if teams are out there looking, you got a pretty big price tag on Giannis, but if you're the Memphis Grizzlies, you're looking at it like, now I can play ball and I can move some things around without it being an issue as well. So, like we all said, it's up to whoever is buying and how much value they want for it. But I'm curious to see what packages teams are going to put together for Giannis or for John Morant, 2 guys that are still out there in trade talks right now.
Here's what I think is kind of crazy, because it was not really that long ago where we looked at Memphis as like, this is the young, fun team. Yep. They've got a great core. All the guys, Dylan Brooks, Desmond Bane, all those guys that were there at the same time. And now all of that's basically been dismantled. Look, some of us don't love front offices as much. Some of us are a little confused at what they're doing sometimes. I'm definitely one of them, Lou. But this feels like, what happened? What happened to what this was supposed to be?
You can make a case where it was a mismanagement. You can make that case. Very, very shortly ago, Ja Morant was saying I'm good in the West. He felt confident about the group that he had, and I think the first big block to go was Dylan Brooks. Yep. We've been very vocal about that on running back. I think they undervalue what Dylan Brooks brought to the table. He was the heart and soul of that group. He was the locker room guy. He was their muscle. He was their defender. He was all of these different things for the Memphis Grizzlies, and I don't think they realized how valuable he was. And he was the first building block to get knocked over. And now, as you can see, Ja Morant he's the last guy left, and we don't even know if he's going to be left by the end of this week. So, definitely a mismanagement. I like those 5 guys together. But again, once you let the heart and soul of a group go, you're going to start seeing the results of that, and I think Memphis is no different at this point.
I couldn't agree more. It started with Dylan Brooks. The guy that, helped create that culture there. And, one thing I've been adamant about saying, when it comes to these organizations putting teams together, they'll go and find their franchise guy, the guy with the most talent, the so-called best player on the team. And they automatically label that guy as the leader of the team, and that's not necessarily how it works. Just because you're the best player does not mean you're the leader of the team.
Right.
The leader of that young Memphis group was Dillon Brooks. And once they let him go, the domino effect started after that. So we're now in the last days of it, and we see how it turned out for this Memphis group. I think they totally overreacted in the year that. And it was weird how they did Dillon Brooks. Before the season was even over.
Yeah,
before the season was even over, they were saying, we don't want him back. And I always thought that was a weird situation. So I do think they overreacted. I do think they mismanaged that situation. And like I said, we're now living in the present day of those results.
The Dillon Brooks chapter of the NBA will be studied one day.
Oh, yeah.
Why did so many people not see what we're all seeing now?
He was a glue piece.
Very interesting.
Yeah, he was a glue piece. And once you get rid of a guy like that, like just the intangible things that we've talked about, the same things that we're praising him for now, Memphis had that and you get rid of it.
Yeah.
And it literally fell apart soon as you get rid of a guy like that. So it's important for teams to value and understand what glue guys are, even if they're not the best player on your team.
Let's look at Utah for a second, Boogie. The core now, we've mentioned already, it sounds future-wise like it's going to be great. Now, obviously, they're in a predicament this season. They do have a draft pick that needs to be somewhat protected or it goes to OKC. Can't have that. But they're the 13th seed right now, right? Mm-hmm. They're 8 games back. They've also had some very interesting wins over the course of their season so far. How long before this is an actual playoff team?
Next season.
I
think next season. Like you said, they do have a chance to have another very, very valuable pick this season. I think they're doing a great job of making sure they keep that pick, if you know what I mean. I like this group. Like I said, the head of the snake is Keontae George. That's probably not a name that a lot of people are accustomed to yet, but you will be. He's a future superstar in this league. Ace Bailey, a young pick coming up from this draft. Super, super talent. In my opinion, he had a case to be a #1 pick, my opinion. Larry Markkinen, you know what he brings to the game. And then adding a guy like Jaren Jackson, I like this group a lot. I think they'll continue to add pieces. They do have, young talent coming off the bench, guys like Collier, who just had a 22-assist game. So it's talent there. I like this group, and I think by next season, they'll be a playoff team.
I'm gonna manage expectations.
Okay.
I say 2 years.
Okay.
And the reason being, 4 of the 5 of these guys were already there. But Jaren Jackson is a piece that you add to this young core that puts you in a position to feel like you're going to have a successful run. But you're looking at the West, OKC ain't going nowhere, San Antonio, Denver, Houston, Lakers, Phoenix, Minnesota, Golden State. Those 8 teams, they're not going nowhere. They're going to do what's necessary to put themselves in a competitive position at all times. And then right after that, you're looking at the Clippers, and then you're looking at a young Portland team who's very similar to Utah Jazz with a lot of young talent. You can start seeing them kind of turn the corner. So it's not going to be easy for them. So when you put all of that pressure or all of those expectation levels on first year and second year guys, you're going to go through some turbulence. So I give them another year next year where they can start getting their feet wet, start putting some real pressure on those teams where you can start seeing them turn the corner. And I think 2028 is when you really start seeing this thing start turning into fruition. So I'll manage expectations out in Utah. I say the year after next is when we really start to see this trade start to come into fruition from Utah.
God, you're asking us to be patient.
Gotta be. Got no choice. It's so many other good teams right now. If you got to do it today, it's hard for me to look at those other teams and see Utah being in that mix just next year.
What about finesse on this team? Too much? How are we feeling as far as what this looks like now, adding Jaren Jackson?
I like the look as far as, his intangibles. He's a versatile big. He can spread the floor. My only issue with Jaren Jackson is the rebounding.
Okay.
And, I ended up, coming across a very interesting stat. Every season he's been in the league, based off the season, he's never had more than 10 rebound games in a season. So rookie year, I believe he had about 3. It was another season he had like 6. So for me, as a former big, you think about your responsibilities on a nightly basis as far as what you bring to the game. And as a big, rebounding is probably priority number 1 or 2. So when I see that stat, it bothers me. So As far as, you're now in a new situation, I think that's something that needs to be addressed. I think it's a responsibility that's, more on his shoulders now as being one of the veteran guys on this young Utah group. So I think that's an area that needs to be improved. And
that's a crazy stat.
It blew my mind. I never would have expected that, but as a big, that's unacceptable.
No,
completely unacceptable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unacceptable.
Yes, this is true. It is unacceptable. That's not the only trade we got yesterday. There's another big one. Another